Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for one of our first Qweerty Gamers Q&As. I am really happy to introduce our next guest. Tom Keegan is one of the world's top performance directors for video games. His work includes AAA franchises including Battlefield, Star Wars, Wolfenstein, Call of Duty, Resident Evil, Need for Speed, it goes on and on. He received a BAFTA nomination for his work on Wolfenstein: The New Colossus, and his projects have won multiple BAFTAs, Game Awards, and the Golden Joystick. Please welcome Tom Keegan.
Hey, hi everybody. Welcome.
Welcome, welcome. So glad to have you,
Yay.
Tom.
Thank you. Welcome Qweerty followers.
Yes. So, we are here to talk about you and your amazing career and what you have done in video games. But first, let's hear what a performance director is. For those who might just be casual gamers and not understand the role of what
Mhm.
you're doing, can you just tell us a little bit about what your job is?
Yeah, for sure. Well, a performance director is kind of a cross between like a film director and the director of a play, because it takes so many people to make a game, right? And that is one of the great things about games is that it is a very collaborative medium. No one single person can really run away with it. So the performance director is the person that directs the actor part. And a lot of times that will involve performance capture, which is capturing the movement, the body, and the face all at once. You've seen people in those little suits with dots on, and that's turned into the movement you see in the game. Voiceover, right? Everybody knows about voiceover recording. So that's when people get in the booth and they do all the lines. From the dramatic scenes to the in-game lines to what we call the efforts, right? Which are the shouts, ah! You know, and the zombie sounds, right? All that stuff. And so I basically cast the actors, I help the story along, and I direct the actors. So that's why it's called a performance director, because the game director is usually somebody else.
And so, do you come from a performance background then to be a
Yeah,
performance director?
yes. So I was an actor. I started out as an actor. I always wanted to be an actor. You know that thing when you're a kid when you can't wait to get up in the morning and like you can't wait till your feet hit the floor. If there was like a day that I was going to be in a play or something, I called it a school play day, and that became my go-to experience for like a peak experience. It was like a school play day. And I went to drama school and I got really into movement also.
Mm.
Um, I saw when I was about maybe 16 in small town Schenectady, New York. I saw the Schenectady Civic Ballet. And up to then, I had been like not a very good athlete. I was never a ball guy. My father wanted me to be a ball guy, right? I was a mover, gymnastic, blah, blah, blah. So I
Mhm.
saw this ballet and I was like, I got to do that. And the most like good looking guys, right, in it.
Right.
But I was like, there's no way I could even broker that subject with my family. So when I went to college, I started studying dance and movement. And so then when I moved to New York after college, I got into basically the queer movement and performance art scene, the downtown New York, East Side, new wave scene of the
Mhm.
1980s. And we were really on the forefront of like queer theater and queer performance. And with my partner, who's now my husband, we did a lot of really early, original kind of queer relationship, queer theater. And just a combination of movement and all that. And with non-linear kind of stuff, spray paint, being naked, characters, stories. Um, then when I moved out to LA and I got involved in animation, I had a friend that had a little animation company, and through that I ended up working in like kids educational software. When games first came out, maybe some of your, some of our listeners like did Jumpstart or Blaster, Math Blaster. Like I directed and even wrote some of those. And then we had this is really crazy. We got a license for American Idol when it first came out, but as a dance game, right? Can you imagine that? Like, like American Idol, but all we had the license for was like a dance game. And so they were the company I was working for was like, oh, we need somebody who can do dance, and we need these pieces of dance that would go together like in animation, right? You have to have like a fault point, like a stop point, and that could when everything could blend, and then you could take another. You won. You did a song right. It was mostly about getting on the beat. Then you got a piece of movement, and so your dance kind of grew. And then you can still look it up. I've looked it up online. It's like American Idol like 2002 or something. It's so cheesy, but if you win, you get to do the big number at the end, and flashes come up. And so anyway, they said there's this thing called motion capture. Can you go down and can you do the dance thing? And I was like, hey, I got this. I knew choreographers and stuff, and I worked with a choreographer. And we went down and we did this motion capture thing in a big studio. And I was just like, oh, this is for me. And then they started adding performance into it, acting and stuff like that. And so I was kind of in the early days of that, and I was just like, I had experience because I had done one thing. And it has been just the most wonderful career. The first game I did was something called The Darkness, which was kind of a seminal game, um, and we called it vocap at the time, and we did it like one actor at a time in a sound studio, and this was like revolutionary that we were doing this. It was like so much fun. And in fact, I was working with one of the guys who's still at Machine Games, so we worked together a long time. And Andrea Toyas, I don't know if you know her, but she's very famous now as she's the head of voiceover for Blizzard, for all the Blizzard games. And she was my assistant. It's like the
Wow.
early days of movie making or something. It's like it seems like so long ago, but and then I just was like, I'm going to run with this. So I've been specializing a lot in performance capture. So that's, capturing the body, the face, and the voice all together. And as games have grown, it's funny because every year, every few years, whatever, there's a sort of move from the companies of like, nobody wants a story. We're not going to have a story. And then the players love a story, and everybody loves a story, right? In the
Hmm.
medium, the gameplay and the story, when it's well done, it's very organic. So, um, and then I've been really fortunate to work on some of the really, big franchises. Star Wars is incredible. Um, it's such a canon. It's such an amazing mythic canon, and
Yeah.
people at Lucas are really have been really great to work with. Really super helpful because I've been a fan, but not a super fan, which I think has actually helped me to kind of bring a fresh eye when I'm directing it. And they've been super helpful in pointing me to like, oh, in the animated series, there's this reference, or in this movie or in this comic. So it's really, some of the partners I work with, Resident Evil also. That was a big one. Like, redoing Resident Evil 2. One of the actors in it, Nick Apostolides, he was just like, I can't believe I'm in this. When I was a kid, he's like, I'm acting this moment when Claire and Leon meet up, and he's like, when I was a kid, this was a seminal moment in my experience, and now I'm acting in it.
Wow.
And it's so great. It's just games is just the most wonderful. Well, you all know that, of course, but it's
Yes.
just the most wonderful industry filled with amazing people.
Yeah. Can you remember one of the first video games you've ever played personally?
Well, of course, um, the first time I encountered it was, was doing research like Jumpstart and all of that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. The first game I played personally was, I, um,
It could be Candy Crush.
I never played Candy Crush. I refused to play Candy Crush. I probably was first game I probably played was Grand Theft, one of the Grand Theft Autos, the one with
Oh,
Liberty Island,
cool.
the one set in New York. Oh, well, I mean, really, the first one I think the first one I played was The Darkness, actually, the one I had done. I mean,
Hmm.
when I was doing kid stuff, I was, playing all those games and stuff like that. It was super easy doing a lot of
Yeah.
research. Um, when I was playing The Darkness, it was so funny because I didn't really grow up with it, right? And so I was like, I couldn't get out of the parking lot, the first level. I was like facing the floor, trying to walk through a wall. But then I got better at it, and I realized, oh, if you just kind of ease up and stop trying so hard, you can get through. And then, a lot of times I'm playing stuff that I have played, but my favorite game that I have ever played is The Last of Us. I think it's
Mm, it's
just
incredible.
it's such an incredible game, and the acting is so good. And you know, just because acting is my thing, um, if the acting, if like one moment of the acting in something isn't good, I'm like lost. It's like broken for me, and so I can't you can't take me as like a normal person watching a game. It's like a busman's holiday, because I work in it. But I just thought The Last of Us was amazing, and in fact, I had met with Neil Drucker, the creator of it, when he was doing it, and because we both studied with the same directing teacher, a woman named Judith Weston, who was phenomenal. And a lot of the big movie directors that are coming out, like Inarritu of The Revenant, and Ava DuVernay, and Steve McQueen, and Taiki Watatai. I'm not sure, probably saying his
Hmm.
name wrong, but they all studied with Judith too. She was a directing teacher, and Neil had studied with her, and he wanted me just to cast it, and he wanted to direct it himself. And I was like, man, you should cast, like, you should do the callbacks, because that's you're connecting with the actor, and you work with Judith, and that's just so important to connect with the actor. And it's interesting because I was just talking to a friend today who she just got a contract with Amazon to direct like an audiobook, and um, I was just saying, you have to remember that the number one job of the director is to set a great atmosphere, a creative atmosphere, and set a tone. Kind of get out of the way, let the actors do their thing, and kind of, you've done the preparation, but to understand what the developer wants, what the producer wants, and then kind of massage the actor and try to bring the parties together. Um,
Yeah.
but a scene, any kind of acting in a game really has to serve the game. That's the thing, and
Hmm.
that's what movie directors have. Who people who when if that's their medium, they can't get games because they just want it to be all about the story, and the storytelling is done through the gameplay. And so for every scene, you have to know. If you're directing a game, you have to know what's the gameplay coming right out of this scene, and what gameplay are we going into, and what is the purpose of this scene, in the game, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what advice would you give to somebody who's looking to do a job similar to yours and a job like that? If somebody really wants to get into voiceover or motion capture, like obviously coming from a performance background is really important in your career, and movement was a big part of your journey.
Yeah.
But what would you say are some steps that any a young gamer might want to take if they want to work in gaming in your field?
Well, it depends. I mean, there's a couple of things there. If you want to work in games, on the production side, like I have a young intern working with me right now, and I've just been encouraging him to um, either take some classes in animation or programming. Um, there's so many people who are very talented in playing games, but you have to really be able to be able to work with a group, and you have to have the skills that go into it. And you have to be willing to kind of start at an entry level. If you're an actor, um, if you're a voice actor, you really need to train. Acting is really a craft, and voice is a craft and a science in a way. It's like dance. And in fact, I just was at a seminar last night on vocal health for voice actors, and I really liked what the main doctor there was saying. She said, "You are a vocal athlete." And particularly if you're working in games, you're a vocal athlete and you have to train like an athlete. And so you have to work out your voice every day. You really have to study and be able to, I was just kind of playing around with sounds, but you have to be able to make extreme sounds um, to work in a game. And you have to have good acting. So I always say, people come into it with different sets of skills. Some people are great mimics, and they're fantastic at imitating people. That's an awesome skill. So then your challenge is to go the other side, which is to really get into the acting and to be able to go beyond imitating to create a character, right? Like if you look at any of the characters in like Star Wars or Resident Evil, your acting is paramount, and then you have to have the goods to go along with it. You have to have a great voice, and you have to have a great presence. And if you want to do performance capture, then you have to have a physical presence. And it helps if you have some kind of stunt background or weapons handling, so it can look, really authentic. If you have to do a monologue while you're packing a weapon, or you're cleaning a weapon, or you're playing a soldier, it has to read as that your way around a weapon, even if it's just how to pick it up. Because a lot of times the AI will kick in, but you have to carry the weapon, in the scene in between. You have to know how to kind of sling it and carry it safely. And
Mm-hmm.
then if you're getting into combat, I'll just step back a little bit. But a lot of times at the end of a scene, you have to take a position that's like a ready. And like in some games, I don't think I have a prop weapon here, but in some games, there's a certain position that's very square that you want to have with the weapon that will match the animation. Um, if you I have a lightsaber right here. A very, I have like a $5 lightsaber, and yes, this is the actual plastic lightsaber gotten from Target, which was used in auditions for um, Jedi Fallen Order. Right here.
Wow.
Yes. And the first the first day, and we would ask people to kind to improvise with the lightsaber. And the first day we hadn't taken the batteries out, and so it would kind of turn on in the middle of the scene and go, whoosh, which would make people laugh. But you can get some very, very nice lightsabers, but I wouldn't use them in rehearsal because they're going to break.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, nice prop.
Nice prop. Now, a question about queer characters in games. Have you had the chance to direct or be a part of any queer characters in games, or what are your thoughts on the industry and being inclusive in that manner?
You know, things have changed a lot since I got into the industry, which is really great. Um, we've seen more queer characters. In Wolfenstein, of course, we had the character of Booby, who was a kind of a queer character, the boy toy of Frau Engel. Um, the character of Caroline in Wolfenstein was also a queer character, although never had a partner. It was never revealed, but we all knew. There was some talk maybe about a prequel where she had a partner. Um, uh, where else? Uh, we very none that I have worked on directly that had. Oh yeah, no. Dead Rising 3. Dead Rising 3. We had some. And it was interesting because an openly very queer lesbian writer, Annie Reed, was the writer on it, and I was the director. And we had a lesbian audio person, Lynn Gardner, um, and the 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 game did not get good reviews from a queer point of view. It was super extreme. Every character in that is very extreme. It comes from a kind of anime background. There was like an S&M, a crazy S&M. All the characters were so over the top, and there were like Seven Deadly Sins characters, and um, we had a lot of queer in every sense characters in that game. But I would love to do more. I was up for a game that had an openly queer character in it recently, but they ended up picking someone else, which was a great. The choice they made was really great. Um, so I'm always encouraging. Oh, Jedi Fallen Order. We had. Now I'm not going to be able to think of the character's name, but if you've played it, when Cal gets captured by the pirates that Grease owed money to, and he's put in this big ring, and there's this big old queen who's like this Australian queen who's like, "How do I have here? Oh, we got." It was really great. And I went to them. I was like, let's make this a full out like queer big old queen. And they were like, great, yeah. And they were like, yeah. And Lucas likes it, so we went with that. That was a lot of fun.
That's fun. And
Yeah.
do you see that kind of getting more and more, that there's more and more queer representation in games from when you started?
There is definitely more and more. I don't know, but there is
Oh yeah.
definitely more.
Okay.
Um,
Fair enough.
uh,
Well, so
I,
one of the
I,
questions that I
yes.
really wanted to bring up, because I want to move to audience Q&A in a couple minutes, but do you have any sort of resources, especially in a time now where we can't really leave our houses, but do you have any resources, online sources, digital workshops, or whatever, for people to learn about this kind of craft of voiceover, motion capture, and whatnot? Like, what would you recommend?
Um, it's hard to, it depends on the level that you're at. I do teach classes myself.
Oh,
Um, you
tell us
can
about it.
uh, you can check out my Tom K Studios on Instagram and on Facebook. Um, I teach a lot of classes through the Voice Over Network, which comes out of London. In fact, I have a class coming up on August 25th. They're called Decoding Video Game Auditions. Um, there's a lot of good teachers out there. I don't know that you can learn performance capture. That's a good challenge to teach a performance capture class on Zoom. Um, uh, yeah, but those are some resources that I know that are good, I think. And the voiceover network in particular, I mean, it's out of London, but we do a lot of classes, that we do it at a time when if you're in Europe or in the US, you'd probably be comfortable. If you're in Australia, Japan, or China, you may need to stay up during the night. But um, they have great classes, not just me, but a lot of other classes on voiceover and video games, auditioning for video games. So the Voice Over Network is the name of it.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I've been teaching a lot more, and it's a good time to work on craft and technique right now, especially.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And are you working on anything in particular that you're at liberty to discuss?
Well, I just got permission to reveal that I can't say anything about it, but I'm working on a game called Athea, which was just revealed by Sony. quite recently. It's an amazing game with a strong female protagonist and fantastic story, fantasy game. I'm just loving it, absolutely loving it. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that turns out. It's
Cool.
through a new studio called Luminous in Tokyo, and they are a part of Square Enix.
Oh, exciting. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And have you done any voice or performance in a video game you've directed that we can kind of peek and see you do some of your
Oh my
work?
gosh. Well, yes, I have my Alfred Hitchcock moments in a number of
Yes.
games. So right at the beginning of Resident Evil 2, the remake, when they're coming into Raccoon City, there's an announcement saying, "Attention! If you are entering Raccoon City, all services to go to the police station." There's like a big God announcement. But my biggest appearance is in Wolfenstein: The New Colossus. At the very end, I play the talk show host Jimmy Carver, who is gratuitously kissing the butt of Frau Engel, the villain, and that's the big boss battle right there. You have to kill her on my talk show. So
Amazing.
you can find that on YouTube if you look at the Jimmy Carver, look for the Jimmy Carver scenes.
That's
Um,
fun.
the new Colossus too. It was really fun. It's good every now and again to do a little acting in a video game for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to turn it over to the audience questions. So if there's anybody that's
Okay.
watching that has some questions, go ahead and throw it in the chat room, and they're being sent my way. I have somebody who has named themselves Booby Wolfenstein, and he
Oh,
says, "Why did Booby and Wolfenstein not get to make out with Blachowicz?"
oh yeah. Um, well, if you remember that, it was a concentration camp that he was in, and then Blaskowitz killed him quite violently. So you could see that as a kind of sexy encounter, I suppose. But
I guess so.
he was also, remember the situation he was under. It's a very funny question. Um, he was under the thumb of Frau Engel, and he probably was in the closet, I think.
Yeah,
So,
I would think so.
yeah.
Um, Next question is from Stephen Harmon Games. He's a mocap tech and animator. He wonders how would one move from a more technical mocap role to a talent-facing directing one?
That is a great question, Stephen. Um, I would say if you work at a studio, or if you're working at a studio, then um, from there you could maybe move to a developer because you have mocap experience to the animation department of a developer. But also, um, there's a lot of times when maybe you're an AD. An AD is the person who kind of runs a shoot and goes action, stop, or whatever. And if there's an opportunity to do some walk cycles and things like that, that's a great way to start and say, but you really would need to know what the developer needs. Um, but offer your help and assistance, and then if you take some directing classes. I mean, look for some directing, or even if it's like an improv class, just something where you're working in performance with people. Um, it would be, I don't know where you are in the world, what country or you are, but it's if you align yourself, also with your developers, reach out to your developers, let them know you're interested. You could maybe run some sessions. That's a great way to get started.
Very nice. Another question from Bobby Wolfenstein. Which games does Tom think would make a successful transition from game to film?
Well,
Or
oh
I'm
my
sorry,
God.
which one do you think already made a successful transition? But I'm curious what you think would make a good film. So if you
Well,
know of an existing one, yeah.
it's very hard to, it's very hard to make that transition because, again, it's a different medium, right? The story has to be really rich, and then you're going to have to get movie stars to be in the movie. But I definitely think the Wolfenstein ones, right? I mean, they're so cinematic. When we started working on the second one, the creative director, Jens Mattis, cut together a like 3 hour version of the first Wolfenstein, The New Order, with kind of side by side, because in Wolfenstein, you in the first one, there's a moment where you select one of the people to live and one of the people to die, and then you play with that character, and you have slightly different characters all the way through. So, and he cut them kind of side by side, so that
Mm.
you could also sort of see the different um, the different through lines, or he'd flash back from one to the other. But I've always thought I don't know why game companies don't make it into a movie and show it in a theater, and then all the people could bring their loved ones and their friends and even their parents to see, like, this is the franchise I love. And if you just come to this showing of it, in a big theater, we can have an outing together, and you can like learn about this thing that I love and this world that I love, because and then you wouldn't have the interactivity. But if somebody who really knew the game, knew the perfect angle and all the shots and things like that, um, then um, you could have a great experience watching it, right?
Yeah, totally. I love the. I don't know if you know Fathom events, but they do those like one-off
Yes,
theatrical events, and it
I
sounds like
know, I know,
it'd
I
be
want
so
that so
cool
much.
to do like a cinematic movie night. Yeah, so for people that don't want to watch you play
Come
the
on,
game, you
Chandler,
just
let's do it.
yeah.
I do it myself, but I'm too busy. But come on, we could get together and do it.
Right. Let's see. I think we answered these other questions. Would you like to see more game by characters in games? Yes, we talked about
Yes, for
that.
sure.
Young gamers would like to get into motion capture. Is there any training? We talked about that. So yeah, I think we hit up our audience questions. Sorry for those who asked questions. I already had them in my to ask list for Tom. If there's no more questions from the audience, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us at Qwerty Gamers, and I hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having Queerty Gamers. It's great that an organization, and yeah, keep playing. And thank you so much for having me. It was really great.
Cool.